Hi everybody. Hey, got a new series going on starting tonight. We are calling it The Truth About Weight Loss. You know, it's the right time of year to kind of talk about, New Year's resolutions, and everybody usually has some sort of health goal. I really just want people to focus on how it really works, the science of it. I want people to have success in that. And I find that, especially when I talk to new clients or people that are really have struggled or tried everything and they just really haven't gotten where they want to go, it's because they really have some misconceptions about how your body works and what's important. And so tonight we're talking about the difference between weight loss versus fat loss, because they are not necessarily the same thing. So let's talk a little bit about that. I mean, if you've got a weight loss goal, if you were in my room, I'd say put up your hand. But if you're just tuning in, if weight loss is one of your goals, or you've ever tried to lose weight before, hop on here and tell me that that's something that you've done before, and maybe even give me your experience with it, because you know what, we've all been there. My first diet, my first true diet, I was 12 years old. I went to, hey Daniel, I went to Weight Watchers with my mother, and it was something that I learned. I didn't have a healthy relationship with food. And so, of course, I've been trying my whole life to lose weight. Now, what made the difference in my life, and for those of you that have never, stalked me on Facebook or looked at any of my pictures or gone on my website, my heaviest was 210 pounds and 45% body fat, which is obese. As an adult, I spent a lot of years that way, and it was just more of an educational issue versus, anything else. But having been there, I've done the diet thing. It was when I actually switched goals. The biggest thing that changed for me was I decided to become strong, right? Versus lose weight. So I kind of learned to exercise for the enjoyment of it. I actually found I was good at something. Building muscle, especially when you're new to lifting, you have this little magic period where your body really responds. And so it was pretty exciting. The focus really changed, and I was able to see results that I had never been able to see in my whole life. And I was about 33, 34, maybe 35 at the time. And now, of course, I am turning 44 in 10 days, and it's a little different focus and a little different ballgame because I've done the research, I have the education behind it, I know the difference between weight loss and fat loss. So let's talk about that. Weight loss is getting on the scale and being devastated that even though you're seeing other results, you're devastated because the scale has not moved. But let's talk about that stupid scale. As a matter of fact, somebody and I just had that conversation this evening at the gym. But the scale doesn't tell you everything. It doesn't give you enough information, right? It doesn't tell you, because think about it. What does a scale tell you? It tells you what you weigh according to a sack of potatoes maybe, right? But it doesn't give you the breakdown. It doesn't say, well, now some of them do. Don't get me wrong. I know I have one of those scales that says this is how much body fat you have. This is how much lean muscle mass you have. The only downside to those is those are only so accurate. I personally have had some serious issues with, I have one of those scales and it's never correct. I usually get fat pinched. So I know exactly where I am, and they just, wow. Yeah, just wow. But most scales, especially if you're just relying on the weight, it's not going to tell you how much is body fat, how much is lean muscle tissue, how much of that is water. And that's important to know because, again, there's certain things that we want to lose and there's certain things we don't want to lose, right? So I prefer to use the word fat loss because isn't really that our goal? We want to burn fat because, think about it. Fat does not give you shape. Right? Does not give you shape. There is no shape to fat. I giggle when people come in, they say, well, I don't really want to build muscle. I just want to tone. And I'm going, toning is building muscle. What exactly are you going to tone to? Fat has no shape. Just, wow, yeah. So the difference between fat loss and weight loss is weight loss can come from muscle. And there's distinct benefits to having muscle. We're going to talk about that in just a second. So what we truly want is fat loss, and the scale does not always reflect that. There are better ways to find whether or not you're losing weight, and I'm going to give you those tips in just a second. But let's talk about the benefits of muscle, right? Because I get a lot of women, not so much anymore, which I find fascinating. I think people are a little more educated on what muscle does. Plus, I think there's been quite a trend to going more towards a slightly muscular, more shaped body, especially with in our fitness world, our bodybuilding world. We have bikini, which has become bikini girls have muscle, right? They're not just, what is that, Miss Tropics or whatever, where it used to be. I mean, the bikini girls have muscle. So I think it's become a little more acceptable to have more muscle as shape. And so thought process has changed a little bit. But muscle does some major things for us, right? Number one, it increases our metabolism. So think about the fact that, fat does burn a little bit in the way of calories, but not like muscle. Muscle has its own mitochondria. Those are like your little powerhouses in your body that actually need fuel in order to function. So and it's not just when you exercise, right? It's when you sleep as well. So it's not just, when you do cardio, yeah, you burn a little more for a little bit in the way of calories. But when you put on muscle, you actually burn more calories around the clock. So it's kind of funny. I tell people sometimes I can get away with eating a little bit more on the weird side just because my muscle is going to break it down and utilize it faster. Now, I eat really clean, you know that, right? But so muscle does that for you. It also makes you stronger. And honestly, I don't see a downside to that. As we get older, that becomes more and more important. I actually just read an article not very long ago how grip strength, the fact, the older we get, the more that grip strength will actually tell you how healthy you are, right? Over even some of your blood work, which I find fascinating because, again, that means that muscle is necessary. And muscle is where your core strength comes from, which is where your balance comes from. So again, the older we get, the more benefits we get from that. So I think it's really super important that we realize that muscle there really is no downside to muscle. Now, of course, I'm very aware that I have more muscle than the average woman, but that's because I really like it. Mostly because I have figured that, learning to lift changed my life. It not only changed my perspective on what I was trying to accomplish goal-wise, which, like I said, for a lot of years was weight loss, just like everybody else. Now I realize, because I can lose weight really fast. As a matter of fact, a couple of years ago, getting ready for a competition, I actually dropped about 22 pounds in 8 weeks, which sounds awesome, with the exception of the fact that it was mostly muscle, and I was very frustrated looking back that I wasn't paying more attention to that. It's been fixed, but things like that happen. So the downside to losing weight is it could be muscle, and that's not necessarily a beneficial option, especially the older that we get. We have already found, there's already research out there that shows that we lose about 2 to 4% a decade after age 30. So we're already fighting that process, and that's why our metabolism starts to drop. The more muscle you have, the more food you actually need to eat in order to preserve that. So benefits of muscle, shape. Hello, you've seen skinny fat, guys. It's not cute. It's not attractive. The waif look is really no longer in. And not only that, that doesn't necessarily mean healthy. I just don't find it cute. Just because somebody is super, super skinny, that's not always attractive. As a matter of fact, I don't like the word skinny. I find that, to me, that's a 4-letter word. When I do get lean, I'm lean, which is a totally different ballgame. I'm not tiny because I have a lot of muscle, but it's a different process. It's a different ballgame. It's a different focus. I find that the shape that muscle gives you is hella sexy. Not gonna lie. Like, I just find that it's super attractive because, partially it means that you're actually paying attention and working on yourself. And it doesn't have to be crazy muscle in order to be attractive. It just depends on the person, right? So yeah, keep that in mind that, and girls, I lift crazy heavy, and I struggle to get size. So, what you see on this whole, if I lift, I'm gonna get it bulky. No, guys, you're not gonna get bulky. Ladies, you're not eating enough, nor do you produce enough testosterone to get bulky. So that is a myth. Try it. It's not gonna happen like you think it is. The other benefits of muscle, I know a lot of women and men my age that have really bad backs. They're having posture issues, and it's all because they don't have muscle strength, especially core strength. That comes into place all over the place. Even just having good posture will help you look leaner immediately, right? So there's huge benefits. Again, it doesn't have to be crazy muscle, but there's just seriously no downside to building muscle. And you can have your allowance of muscle. Whatever you decide is attractive is great, but that might require that the scale doesn't move, right? I've actually had situations where, the clients come back and they're like, okay, well, the scale's not moving. I'm like, yes, but you've grown muscle, and muscle is more dense than fat, right? So sometimes I have to ask my clients, do you want to weigh less or do you want to be smaller? because they don't always go together. The first time, I know I mentioned this, the first time I ever came down, I started at 210 pounds. And when I finally got down the first time to 125, and I hadn't done that since I was a teenager, I was a size 6. Now when I'm at 125 pounds, I'm a size 0. So do you see where I'm going with that? That it just doesn't give you enough information when it comes to where your body's going metabolically, okay? The other thing is, okay, I get a little frustrated, especially this time of year with all of the gimmicks and the garbage that's on TV. And again, one of my clients and I were talking about this, and she, do you remember a couple years ago there was that commercial, and I can't remember which nutrition company it was, but they said something about the fact that the first 10 pounds is the hardest to lose. And I went, what are you talking? I actually laughed out loud when I heard that, because the first 10 pounds are usually the easiest to lose, right? Well, that's because it's water and the contents of your stomach. We would, like I said, just had that discussion. Like, that's exactly right. That first 10 pounds, especially when you start to eat a little bit healthier, and you don't eat as much in the way of carbs and junk, you don't retain as much water. So your body actually tends to flush that first. So, you kind of have to keep things in perspective to make sure that you're doing the right thing, that you're getting to the right place that you're trying to get. Because I think we really delude ourselves into thinking, oh my God, I'm not getting anywhere because the scale's not moving. And I'm like, you just told me you had to go shopping for smaller clothes. How is that not progress? So sometimes we just look at the wrong thing, and then we get frustrated, because if you think about it, sometimes that sabotages us, right? Maybe you're doing great, you feel better, your clothes are fitting awesome, your energy level's up, and then you get on the scale, right? And then you're devastated. I've actually had, especially my guys, for some strange reason, in one breath, I had somebody tell me, oh my gosh, my belt loop, like three holes in, I'm tightening it up so much more. But the scale hasn't moved. Who the hell cares? Who the hell cares if the scale hasn't moved? You're seeing progress. You're seeing the right progress. And personally, I didn't want him to drop a bunch of weight, because that would mean that he was burning all of his muscle off. And that's not what we're looking for. Like I said, there's so many benefits to that muscle. So keep that in mind. So what usually happens when people rely solely on the scale is they rely on really ineffective means of losing weight, right? The drastic diets, eating too little calories. I've actually written a whole book on that called the 1200 calorie diet and other BS. I didn't use BS. I said the whole thing, but those just don't work for multiple reasons. And I know that's a topic for another night, but usually what happens is people, they get on the scale, it's not going anywhere. And so then they sabotage their true goal, which is usually to, like I said, to get smaller, right? To look better, to feel better, to buy smaller clothing sizes. At least that's what it is for me. So then they start to eat like drastically reduced calories and macronutrients, and then their metabolism drops to meet that, right? Because your body's a thermostat. It will work with you. It just wants homeostasis, which means it wants to stay in one place. It wants to be happy and healthy. And so it will try to work with you, whatever you're doing to it, in order to hit that homeostasis. So Kat says, throw away your scale. I've actually been known to take people's scales for months at a time, believe it or not. But we'll talk about my tips in just a second. But like I said, the other downside to that sabotage, when you really start to focus more on what the scale's telling you, is that because we start to eat too little, our body actually burns off that precious muscle that, again, raised our metabolism, that allowed us to eat a little bit more or burn that fat. Muscle is a natural fat burner. So if you're burning all that muscle off, you're kind of ruining the whole overall goal by doing that, right? And that's the hard part. So really, if you think about it, our goal really is to burn off fat, right? And that's a huge issue within the United States, because now we have all these metabolic issues with obesity and type 2 diabetes, which technically are kind of the same thing. So again, it's a huge problem. So just really quickly, here's a summary of the difference between weight loss and fat loss. So weight loss usually includes doing something drastic, like crash diets and things like that, and maybe improper training, like maybe solely focusing on cardio instead of strength training, or doing ridiculous amount of cardio. Here's the deal, guys. The more cardio you do, the better your body gets at it, and at some point it stops being as effective as you would like it to be. It's the one true thing when we do it, we actually don't want to be efficient at it, because we don't burn as many calories. We don't burn as much in the way. And of course the goal is fat, right? We're trying to burn fat. And that can be a problem if we're doing too much of it. The downside to that is that our physical fitness in general becomes decreased, our energy level and our strength decreases, which again, that's not a good thing, right? Our performance decreases, which is a bad thing. We actually age faster. We age earlier, right? And you've always seen those people that, man, that they're a certain age, but they look way older than that. Now, I know stress can do that as well. But a lot of people that do crash diets all of a sudden no longer look their age because they've put such trauma on their body that it just takes a toll, right? Also reduced immunity, because our microbiome needs those nutrients in order to keep our immune systems up. And that's a problem when we're not getting nutrients. That's the other problem of eating solely a junk food diet or processed food. Some people think, well, calories in, calories out. Yes, but processed food does not have nutrients. I don't even care if it says it's fortified with it. Your body does not use it the same way. Real whole clean food was meant to work with your body in a specific way. And junk food or processed food does not do that. So you're not getting the nutrients to support your microbiome, which actually increases your immunity to everything that's out and about. So if you get sick frequently, you might want to check to see what kind of food you're eating, because you're not getting the vitamins and minerals that you need in order to support that. The benefits of fat loss over weight loss, which usually includes great nutrition, specifically, designed to work with supporting your body and the nutrients that it needs. Realize, okay, people who are, and of course, because I've been obese in my past, people who are overweight or obese are actually malnourished. Now, if you don't believe that, text me, because we have some conversations to have. But if you think about it, again, most people who are eating a lot of processed food, which is where, obesity and all these issues are coming from, are not getting the nutrients that they need. They are technically malnourished. Yeah, it's a really interesting thought, isn't it? So keep that in mind. So with fat loss, of course, you're having your good nutrition, correct training, specific, whether you're trying to build a little bit of muscle, a lot of muscle, it's very effective for usually where you think you're trying to get, right? Again, we have to have that realistic expectation of what it really takes to get there. But if you're going the right direction, it's way more efficient, right? So you're going to have improved fitness in that matter. You're going to have greater strength, right? Which again is not a downside. Peak performance, especially now if you have everybody who is an athlete or has a specific sport that they regularly do, or that they did growing up. Hopefully you learned enough that you had to fuel your body in a way that supported that goal, or that athleticism or that sport. Because if you didn't, you had poor performance. And at that point, your goal is to win, right? Or to do the best you could. So nutrition, it plays a huge role there. And then of course, training for that specific direction is important as well. Eating right and working to have fat loss actually delays aging. Have you seen a lot of people who regularly lift? Most of them don't look their age. I love telling people my age and then I'm about to be a grandma and they're like, what? I'm like, yep, I'm old enough, right? I don't look my age, and that's a huge benefit. How many of us are looking for that fountain of youth? It's called take care of yourself, have fat loss, and do it the right way, right? There's also a reduced risk of disease. I rarely get sick anymore. And usually if I do, it's because I'm overdoing it, but it's because I eat so clean and I really focus on eating for the nutrients and training for fat loss versus just losing weight. Now, I'm not going to say I'm immune to ever not stepping on the scale and going, oh my gosh, right? But I know better than to count that scale as the only tool that I need to use. So let's talk about my tips for that. Really, it's such a hard head game to overcome because it's really been drilled into us for so long that it's a hard one. So sometimes you're going to have to maybe even have a coach or a friend or somebody who knows, the situation to kind of give you that, I call it the coming to Jesus talk about what really matters, because I think sometimes we get stuck on those numbers and we forget what's important. So if you do have to weigh yourself, I highly recommend you only weigh yourself once a week, same day of the week, every week, same time of day, which personally I just do morning. As soon as I get up, I weigh myself without anything on, and that way I'm not wondering if I was wearing socks last week. Because that way at least it's giving you a true number, not, if you jump on every day, you guys, you're gonna go up and down. Ladies, you're gonna, depending on where you are in your cycle, you're gonna retain more water. That doesn't mean you gained a bunch of fat. It just means that you are in a specific situation, and it's being reflected right there. So if you, again, are devastated because you're about ready to start your cycle, you're just looking at the wrong thing. You've got to take the information and use it for what it's for. Also, I highly recommend, I know that people, especially when they're in a position where they're not happy with where they're at, they don't necessarily want to take pictures, but I wish I had more before pictures. I only have about 7 or 8 pictures that I can recycle because that's all I have of when I was a big girl. So if you take those pictures, number one, you give yourself a true way to see if there's progress. When I get clients that really get frustrated and struggle because they're not seeing the scale move, a lot of times I'll take those pictures, because I do require that my clients send me pictures. I don't share them with anybody else, but I do take those pictures for a check-in, because I like to side by side those pictures. I can see the change immediately, even small changes. I've done this long enough. I can see, their waist is getting tighter. Their posture is different. Plus, if you see yourself every day, sometimes when you do see those side-by-sides, it remotivates you and you realize you are seeing progress. That's the type of progress you should be seeing. Again, the scale isn't going to give you that information. So taking pictures on a regular basis, I would say minimally once a month. I prefer to see them more often, but that's just me, and that's because I work a little bit differently. And for me, those pictures for my clients are their accountability as well. But, it's really important that you are able to see that progress. Same thing, avoiding the scale but focusing on maybe how your clothes fit, or doing measurements is such a better option, because that scale might not move, but the inches are dropping. And that's how you can still see that you're getting the progress that you were looking for. And that, again, the scale just doesn't give you that info. Scale doesn't tell you you've dropped inches. It just doesn't. Again, it's only telling you one thing. So that's really important. Find ways other than the scale. If you have to use it, just do it in a way that doesn't overtake your whole goal, right? And in the future, we'll talk a little bit more about, realistic goals and realistic timelines. But for now, just really think about really what is your true goal. Is your true goal to feel better, maybe, again, be smaller? Because that's a way funner goal. Dress a smaller body, not a bad option, right? Or is it to weigh less because they don't really constitute the right thing that I think that you're looking for? So hopefully that helps you to kind of make some true good goals as you're going into the new year. I'm a firm believer that you should be able to start a real goal at any time, not just at New Year's when we're setting a New Year's resolution. But if you're going to, let's do it the right way. And that's what this series is about, is really making good choices, avoiding all the gimmicks and the garbage that's out there. There's so much of it. And I'm really amazed at how frequently I can say the same things, but when it's different people or different times, nobody knows the truth. So, that's my goal here, is to give you the truth. I want you to have results. I want you to do it in a way that works. And I want you to keep it off. That's the big part of it. So anyway, guys, thanks for popping in. I see a lot of people popping up tonight. If you guys have questions, Q&A Wednesday is still on. That is at 6 p.m. on Wednesdays, Pacific Standard Time. And again, those are answering questions that I get either from my clients or questions directly from you guys. You can always leave a message below and ask me a question. Monday nights at 7:30 is more about the truth about weight loss, the science about how it works, what doesn't work. I think I posted something about insanity the other day, that insanity is trying the same things over and over and over again and expecting different results. So we already know that low-fat diets and pills and all this other garbage doesn't work. And even if it does temporarily, it's not long-term. So that's what our goal is to overcome the garbage and the BS within the industry. So have an incredible night, you guys. Again, we'll see you Wednesday night at 6 p.m. for Q&A Wednesday and 10 a.m. on Saturday for Meals with Melissa. Have a credible evening, guys. Happy New Year. See you later.